Imagine this. You're a successful Parisian scrap metal dealer. You've been personally invited to a secret government meeting at one of the most expensive hotels in Paris. The man across the table introduces himself as the Deputy Director General of the French Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. He leans forward, he lowers his voice, and then he tells you the French government is planning to demolish the Eiffel Tower and sell it for scrap, secretly, before the public finds out. And you have been chosen as a potential buyer. What you don't know, what nobody in that room knows, is that this man is not a government official. He has 45 different aliases, speaks 5 languages, and has been arrested across 3 continents. And before this week is over, he will vanish with your money, then come back to Paris and do the exact same thing all over again. Victor Lustig was born on January 4th, 1890, in Hostine, a quiet town in what is now the Czech Republic, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. On paper, a respectable middle-class family. His father was a tobacco salesman and town mayor, but behind closed doors, Ludwig Lustig was reportedly physically abusive toward his wife and children. And psychologists will tell you what that kind of childhood produces. A child who learns early that the surface and the reality are 2 completely different things. That the world runs on perception, not truth. That lesson in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. Young Victor was brilliant. He mastered 5 languages, German, French, English, Czech, Italian, all fluent. Memory like a steel trap. Teachers loved him. But by the time he was studying in Paris as a teenager, he had discovered something more useful than academics: gambling. One victim would later tell True Detective Mysteries magazine that Lustig could make a deck of cards, do anything but talk. He also developed a talent for seduction. One jealous boyfriend left him with a distinctive scar across his left cheek, a detail he'd carry for life. The scar, it turned out, was useful. It made him look specific, textured, real. Con artists understand this instinctively. The stranger the detail, the more authentic a person seems. By 18, he had moved from card games to pickpocketing, then to elaborate schemes on Atlantic Ocean liners. Psychologists call it disinhibition, the gradual erosion of moral brakes. Every successful lie makes the next one easier. Every victim confirms something dangerous, that you are smarter than everyone else. Lustig wasn't doing this for survival. He was doing it because he was exceptional at it, and being the cleverest person in any room was the only thing that made him feel alive. In May 1925, Lustig was in Paris, older, sharper, and restless. Then he spotted a small newspaper article. The Eiffel Tower, built in 1889 for the World's Fair, was falling into disrepair. Maintenance costs were spiraling. The structure was never meant to be permanent. Public opinion, the article noted, was quietly shifting toward demolition. Most people read that and turned the page. Lustig read it and thought, what if I sold it? He hired a forger to produce official French government stationery. He rented a suite at the Hôtel de Crillon, one of Paris's most prestigious addresses, because location is a costume. Then he invited 6 top scrap metal dealers to a confidential government meeting. This is called authority bias, one of the most powerful psychological levers that exists. When someone appears to hold institutional power, critical thinking switches off. We don't question them, we perform for them. Every dealer arrived in his finest suit, nervous, wanting to impress him. Lustig told them the government needed to sell the tower for scrap, quickly and discreetly, before public outcry erupted. He spoke with genuine knowledge of Parisian architecture and the tower's complicated legacy. He made them feel chosen, trusted, special, and then he watched, because the real skill was never the speech. It was reading the room. Among the 6, one man stood out. André Poisson, ambitious, insecure, desperate to rise in Parisian business circles. Lustig saw it in the way he leaned forward, nodded too eagerly. He had his mark. In a private follow-up meeting, Lustig did something that sounds insane but was actually genius. He admitted he was a corrupt official, that his salary wasn't enough for the lifestyle he wanted, and he would need a personal bribe to guarantee Poisson the contract. Admitting a flaw makes you seem human, real, but more importantly, it made Poisson complicit. He couldn't report the bribe without admitting he had tried to bribe a government official. This is textbook dark psychology. manufacturing complicity to silence your victim before the crime is even done. Poisson handed over 70,000 francs. Lustig fled to Austria that night. He monitored French newspapers for weeks. No police report, no scandal, nothing. Because André Poisson was too ashamed to tell a single person he had tried to buy the Eiffel Tower and been robbed. So, Lustig did the only logical thing. He went back and tried to sell it again. Same hotel, same stationery, same speech. He nearly succeeded, until one dealer grew suspicious and called the police. Lustig escaped to America with hours to spare, leaving behind 0 days in a French prison. 2 attempts, 2 escapes, 0 consequences. The craziest part? The con worked partly because victims were too ashamed to become victims. Back in America, Lustig ran his famous Romanian box scam, a polished mahogany device he claimed could duplicate any banknote. He'd load 2 genuine $100 bills inside, let the mark watch it print over 6 hours, then sell the machine for tens of thousands. By the time buyers discovered it only produced blank paper, he was gone. Then he did something even bolder. He approached Al Capone, the most dangerous man in America, and asked him to invest $50,000 in a stock deal. Capone, intrigued by Lustig's sheer nerve, handed it over. 2 months later, Lustig returned every cent, claiming the deal had fallen through. Capone, charmed and sympathetic, gave him $5,000 as a consolation. Victor Lustig had conned Al Capone and walked away alive. By the early 1930s, he went bigger. He built a sophisticated counterfeiting ring with a pharmacist named William Watts and a chemist named Tom Shaw, printing fake $100 bills that ran through the economy for 5 years. Dozens of bills a day, hundreds of thousands of dollars in counterfeit currency flooding America. But underneath, the paranoia was building. More partners meant more exposure. More lies meant more complexity. The web had grown so large that even Lustig was struggling to keep track of who he was supposed to be on any given day. The walls were closing in, and he had no idea who was about to betray him. It wasn't a brilliant detective that brought Victor Lustig down. It was jealousy. His mistress, Billy Mae Schiebel, discovered he was seeing his partner Tom Shaw's girlfriend on the side. Furious, she walked into a Secret Service office in 1935 and handed them everything. His location, his operation, his partners. She gave up the man who had outwitted law enforcement across 5 countries because he had cheated on her. He had told one lie too many. On May 10th, 1935, agents arrested Lustig in New York. He denied everything, but investigators found a locker key in his wallet. And when they opened the locker at Times Square station, they found $51,000 in counterfeit bills and the printing plates used to make them. Even then, he wasn't done. One day before trial, he escaped the federal house of detention, fashioning a rope from bedsheets and lowering himself down the building's exterior wall in broad daylight. He was free for 27 days, recaptured in Pittsburgh. His partner Watts agreed to testify, and Lustig finally had no exit. He pleaded guilty. A judge sentenced him to 15 years for counterfeiting and 5 more for the escape. A Secret Service agent leaned over at the courthouse and said, "Count, you're the smoothest conman that ever lived." Lustig reportedly smiled. He served 10 years at Alcatraz before being transferred to a federal medical facility in Springfield, Missouri, where he died of pneumonia on March 11, 1947. He was 57. His death certificate listed his profession with perfect irony as apprentice salesman. Here's what Lustig actually teaches us. His victims weren't stupid. They were human. Authority bias made 6 successful businessmen believe a stranger in a hotel room could sell them a national landmark. That same bias makes you trust a white coat, a badge, a confident voice. It is a feature of how brains work, not a flaw. Lustig also exploited the halo effect, our assumption that attractive, well-dressed, articulate people must also be trustworthy. He understood that looking like power was enough to be given power, and he banked on victim shame. He deliberately targeted people whose pride would silence them after the fact. Many of his marks never reported him, ever, for exactly this reason. The real takeaway: slow down when someone makes you feel specially chosen, when urgency is being manufactured, when a deal seems almost too perfectly timed. Those are the exact conditions con artists build. The most dangerous moment in any scam is when you feel certain you found something others have missed, because that feeling of being the smart one is precisely what they're selling. So here's my question for you. If Victor Lustig walked into your office today, polished, confident, with official letterhead and a once in a lifetime opportunity, would you catch it? Leave your answer below.